Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. Welcome to Perspective Shift.
Yes.
How are we doing this week?
Doing well. Really
Good.
well, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Anything fun and exciting going on in your life in the last couple of weeks?
Fun, exciting. I don't know.
Every day's fun
Every
and
day's
exciting.
fun and exciting, yeah. The fact that I woke up was fun and exciting. It was exciting. I don't know about fun, but I had to make the bed.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, I make my bed every morning.
Karen just got whole new bedding,
Yeah?
and I got used to making the other bedding, and this is like, it's a pain in the ass, and I got to shuffle things
Is there
around.
more steps?
She adds more pillows, the sheets big, like, yeah. So now I have to get used to it.
There's additional
There's
throw
only, like,
pillows.
just when I have it down, she changed it. Yeah, she's my
Dude,
my guru.
Truly,
Yeah.
truly. Just when you think you got it figured out,
Yeah, she
throw
does.
a wrench in it.
She does that too. Like I have stuff like my like vitamins or whatever,
Yeah.
and she'll periodically move them. Like I'm in the car. I'm like, where are my stuff? They're like, they're in there. I'm like, I know they're in here. I'm like, where? I'm like, why do you keep moving them? And I stopped asking that question.
She found a better spot for him.
She found a better spot for him. That's her answer. Yeah.
Clearly.
One day she's gonna find a better spot for me. Be in the garden somewhere,
That's next.
underneath the tulips.
So,
How about you? How was your week?
Oh, good last couple weeks. Not too much. I mean, same old as far as, work stuff goes, just kind of taking every day as it comes my way. Been listening a lot of the gentleman that we're covering today.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I like this guy. You turned me on to him?
Yes,
have-
Adyashanti.
Adyashanti, yeah.
Yep, or at
like
least
this
that's
guy.
how I pronounce it. I'm sure there's multiple ways to
You can say it
this guy's
quick like
name.
Adyashanti.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people call him Adya,
Yeah.
like for short when they're talking to him.
But if you talk to him, he wouldn't care because it's not about the identification.
That's it,
Because prior to that, his name was
Stephen Gray.
Stephen Gray.
Yep, that's his given name, if
Yeah.
you will. Yep.
He was in 50 Shades of Grey. No, I was kidding.
He's cool though because he's like from the Western culture, so he's not. It's very easy to digest and understand. A lot of the concepts he talks about.
Yeah.
And the way he phrases them very much so applies to those growing up in the Western conditioning.
Yeah, he was born in 62.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the San Francisco area.
Yep. San
So
Francisco.
yeah, he grew up in this Western culture, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, roughly in his 20s, he was seeking
That's
more
when
spiritual. Yeah,
that's kind of when it all started. And
Yeah.
that's what I related to when he was sharing these different stories and talking about these concepts. I remember feeling like the same seeking that he talks about and
Yeah.
the same type of pull, towards something more. And that I
like
was able to relate to that.
Yeah, like I like that story we were talking about earlier about how we went to that meditation retreat, and I think it was like a week long. He was talking about it, and he was like when he was excited prior to going, like really excited about going, but then when he got there was like this feeling of like he was in prison or he was doing something wrong or he couldn't get it right, and I think he said by the 4th or 5th day he snuck out of there.
Yep.
Like he had to look left, look right, and get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells me that story. It's pretty significant because I went through stuff like that. When I was young, I would go to these like self-improvement workshops and all that stuff. And prior to going, there was this huge generation of excitement for me. Like, I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to improve my life. And then when you get there, what you realize is your life sucks based on what they're putting in front of you. Like, and that's how it was almost presented. That's how I looked at it, I should say. And I think that's what happens. I thought I was going to go there and I was going to be touched on the shoulder and I go home feeling good. And it was quite the opposite. I'm like, wow, I am really have a lot of work to do.
I'm behind.
I'm behind. I'm like, wow, coming in here, I didn't think I was that behind. Now I'm like, realize, wow, I'm far off from where I have to be. But after, if you buy this course, you can get there type of thing. And I'm like, sons of bitches. But I instinctively knew, but yet I fell into the trap of feeling not worthy. But,
Isn't it funny though how we have to kind of keep going to uncover those stones until you finally flip one over and it clicks? Wow, I'm gonna forever keep flipping these stones.
Or
you
just like, why am I flipping the stones?
That's it.
There's nothing
What
on
am I
this
looking
stone.
for?
Yeah, what am I looking for? Yeah.
And that's what he kind of helped me
Yeah.
see is it's like there's nothing to look for. You're already there.
You are it. Yeah. Yeah. Significance is who we are. We don't need to build upon it. Like just being born here means we're significant.
Well, another cool thing about Adya that like I really thought was cool and I related to, I really like the concepts of both Buddhism and Zen, and these were two of his, heavy backgrounds.
Yeah, well, he was a Zen Buddhist.
Yeah, there you go.
Studied, yeah.
Which is cool.
It is cool.
And like whenever I listen to him speak and kind of talk about stuff, it's from that Zen place.
Yeah.
Which is, you're not this or that, you're both, type of thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you look at all these like Zen, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, there is a correlation with all of them. Like they teach like, you're not this or that, and Jesus said you're in the world but not of it. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It's just told differently. And but when I studied Zen a little bit, again, read about it. I didn't study it like Adyashanti did, but it just kind of read up on it and you correlate. It's interesting. I found that the world that we live in, our life, is a Zen master, and and what I mean is, I heard the story. I think it was from Alan Watts. Told the story one time about a Zen master teaching his pupil. And so the pupil shows up at the monastery, and he's going to learn some type of arts, martial arts or what have you. So the pupil's like, I want to learn. When can I do it? And the master's like, well, just pick up the broom and sweep till then. And he's like, what? Just pick up the broom and sweep, and I'll let you know. So periodically throughout the day, the master would come with a bamboo stick and hit the guy, the pupil, while he was sweeping, and take him off his guard. And then the pupil look at him, hey, what are you doing? And the Zen master with this deadpan face look at him and just walk away. Day in and day out, kept doing it. Till one day, he would hit him with the stick and he wouldn't budge. And then even the following day, came back, and when he went to hit him with the bamboo stick, the pupil that was still sweeping the floor somehow was able to evade getting struck, but still sweeping. And then that's when the master was like, oh, you're ready. It's because he was no longer distracted by the bamboo stick, and he kept on sweeping. And that's what life is. Life is like, it can be distracting, but what we're trying to do, what I was trying to do, I shouldn't say we because I really can't speak for anybody else. I was trying to get rid of the bamboo stick so I could sweep. They're like, no, you can't. You can't get rid of the wind, the rain, the sun. You can't get rid of any of it. But what we can do is stay focused on sweeping, and all the bamboo stick will have no effect on you. Matter of fact, you learn to sweep the floor and somehow duck out of the way without stop sweeping, and the bamboo stick doesn't even strike you. Mm-hmm. There's a way it's a dance to move with it. Like I know when I was learning to box, it wasn't about avoiding getting hit. It was about moving with the punch so the hit had no effect on you. Mm-hmm. So you're slipping. But if you were trying to avoid getting hit, you weren't really a good boxer. You can't avoid getting hit. But when you move with it, it feels like you're avoiding it. You're dancing with it, and you're slipping it so the punches aren't. But if you're trying to avoid it, you're not even in position to play or even box in the case of boxing. And I believe all of life is that way.
I love that bamboo story because it's like kind of like about your goals too. Like what you're doing and what you set out to do, things are going to happen. Things won't fall into place the way you had pictured them or whatever. But are you going to allow that slap or that, event take you off course, mm-hmm. where you stop and you chase it down and say, I must stop this bamboo from hitting me before I can accomplish this? No. You continue to move forward, And so it's like you continue to move towards your goal. You continue to move towards, that thought, that ideal that you picture. And the things that happen, they come and go. This too shall pass. And I think that's like so powerful. Yeah, but even go beyond this too shall pass. It's like that's a state. But then like that's what I like about Adyashanti. He gets into these deeper levels. Why are you trying to get that to pass? Why are you trying to get the bamboo stick to pass? It actually becomes your friend. Now it's a game. Now it's like, wow, okay, I could slip this thing. And so there's different levels of this. So it's like, oh, all right.
just going to hunker down here till this passes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, even in the winter, you could have fun, go skiing. You don't need to, settle up in your house and lock the doors. I'm like, there's things you could do in the winter, spring, summer, fall. They'll be different throughout the seasons of life, throughout the seasons of your day. But it doesn't mean like, oh, I got to wait for this to pass, because then life is just simply passing you by. It's just notice it. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. I got this crazy guy's hit me with a stick.
Have some fun with
it. As I was
it.
trying to sweep, yeah.
Move into it. Move with it.
That was my dad when I was a kid. Like, I got this crazy guy punching me while I'm trying to do my homework.
Keeping you on your toes.
Keeping me on my toes.
Young Frankie.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So should we dive into a clip?
Let's do it.
All right. So this first one, this is a good one. This one's on fear.
Oh, fear is always a good one to start with.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have
Well,
the
there's
right-
only two things in our world, love and fear.
Is this the one right here?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Here we go. Let's check it out.
Our spiritual yearning is actually our intuition of another reality, or a real reality, I should say. The yearning itself arises because that greater reality is already starting to assert itself upon our egoic state of consciousness. We don't even really feel a spiritual yearning until the infinite is already starting to assert itself, until it's already to some degree starting to arise in our consciousness. The first indication that the infinite is starting to arise in our consciousness is our yearning for the infinite. The yearning itself will be an indication that it's beginning to arise. And so there's no quick way to deal with this. There's no way to just sidestep the fear. As I said, at some point, you will be ready and you will face it. And you will, whatever it seems to be threatening you with, you will not turn away. Until it really can't threaten you with anything. Which doesn't mean that you're not scared, it just means you don't turn away. If you don't turn away, then the fear itself you just move through it, it just can pop, like a bubble pops. Like a dream pops when you wake up in the middle of the night and you realize, oh, I've been dreaming.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, the reason, I picked that clip was the yearning. I remember as I slowly started to come into these concepts is when I, during my work life, during my personal life, during my life with my family, friends, I kept, there was this, there's something more to this, this feeling that was going on in me, at all times. And I feel like, definitely if you're watching this video right now, that is a sense of yearning within you,
Well, you just have nothing better to
do. but you don't just kind of just start, I'm going to go Google consciousness for fun, type of thing. So I remember, as I started to get into these, concepts of consciousness, the self, I had this immense yearning for this more. There was more to what was going on in this experience. It could not just be this cut and dry. All right, today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm upset. I need to make money. I got to do this humdrum lifestyle. And that's what was a big deep dive into these consciousness concepts for me, which was a yearning for something more. That, tagged with, what he's talking about with fear is anything outside of us that is different that we haven't experienced before, or something that, is unknown to us, we often steer away from. And it's because we don't know how to navigate it. We've never been in that position before. So our subconscious, mind wants to keep us comfortable, wants to keep us cozy. And so it's the type of thing where it's, oh, you don't like that, or, oh, this is, not for you. When in reality, it's very far from that. It's, in fact, just something you have yet to experience. And so to move into that, like Adya was just talking about, the bubble pops. And this sense of fear, this idea of fear, was really just something you did not know. and there's nothing to fear at all. In fact, as soon as you do move into it, or as soon as you do give it a try, pop goes this illusion that, it was or is scary.
Yeah, and for me personally, I remember I remember even as a young kid, I always wanted to present publicly and stuff. But I was scared. Like I avoided and evaded public speaking for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, very long time. Actually, the first time I really did, I'll tell you a funny story. I might have told you a story before, but when I was a senior in high school, one of my English classes was media experience. And at the final was a presentation I had to do, and I did this with the music.
I remember that. This is a good story. You got to tell this.
So I went into a studio, and I played I created a song. Mm-hmm. So I laid down, I think it was 5 tracks, 2 guitars, bass, drums, and vocal. And what I did, the way I presented is I played each track individually and then collectively all together as the actual song. But because I was like realizing, I'm like, I got so involved in this thing, I was excited about it. Then I'm like, damn, I got to present this in front of a class, and I was like, I do not want to do this. I remember looking at it was actually my guitar teacher's studio, mm-hmm. and he's like, well, why don't you just make a 6th track? I'm like, what? He goes, the 6th track could be the presentation. You just go and sit in the studio and present it. I'm like, all right. So it was a really cool idea, although my English teacher didn't care for it. So I remember going up in front of the class. I put my cassette tape in.
Hell yeah.
And I pressed play, and I went to sit down, and everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? You know? And I'm like, wait. And it's like, then you're on the, hi, my name's Frank Daly.
That's so funny.
And I got away with, like, I avoided the presentation part of it, and everyone was laughing because it was kind of funny.
It is. You skirted around it.
Yeah, but then I remember one time I was getting, I was hired by this company to do, I'm in the hair business, so yep. I got hired by this company to do stage work, like cutting in front of people, and yep. So you go to these conferences, and when I first started doing this, you go to these conferences, there was like every company was there. They rent out the JPEG Javits Center, the Staples Center, in LA.
Big, yeah.
Yeah, so big place. So you go there, and every company's there. So they got these big stages. So I remember getting the gig, and I remember right when they told me I had it, they said, okay, you're going to Vegas 4 weeks from now, so like a month. And so, all right, okay, you're presenting, you'll have 2 slots, each of them like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and roughly it's going to be anywhere from 500, 600 people. When they said that, now I'm in front of people that I know presenting, and I didn't have a problem with that. Although I did feel nervous when they told me that. I'm like, "What, are you kidding me?" Do you know what I did? Like the next day, like literally the next day, I joined freaking Toastmasters.
Oh yes. You told me.
So
about
I'm
this.
like, oh my god, because I didn't want to give this up. Well,
explain what Toastmasters is.
It's a public speaking forum.
Yep.
You go in. It's kind of like a. It's really interesting. Yeah,
you get together with the intention to put yourself
public
in a
speaking, and it's very well
speak.
organized. It's so no matter where you go, it's almost like it's very well organized. They track the time and everything, and you can actually just sit there and present anyway. So it's about how you're presenting, not really what you're talking about at the time at the beginning. But what he was talking about, so. Yeah, I went to Toastmasters. I was literally went like 3 weeks prior to this thing, and I was going 1 day a week. It wasn't like I tackled this thing, mm-hmm. But to me, it was like I have to do something. So, I was doing something in the interim of me showing up, relieved me of the anxiety, because I think I would have just said, you know what, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because I've done that before, like I did in high school. I found a way around it, but this wasn't going to work. I had to be in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, I get out there, and there was a stylist before me when I presented, came after him. I went out, and I was nervous as all hell. But then I started talking, and I said something quick off the cuff like I've always done, and everyone just started laughing. And then that was the pop for me. That fear dissipated. And then I realized, not just to get over this, I loved public speaking. I loved it. So the goal here isn't to head into something that you don't want to do. Like if public speaking is not in your form of life, that's not a fear. It's like having a fear of heights when you're standing on the ground. Like that's just absurd. You don't need that. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be high up, if you want to be on the top story of a building, you better get over the fear of heights, so to speak. For me, I wanted to present. And when that popped on stage, something overcame me. It doesn't, now, granted, every time I did it after that, I was nervous, but a little less nervous. Now, I don't get nervous because, you know, I understand I don't prepare myself for speaking anymore. When I prepare myself, I always got nervous because I'm like, I hope I don't forget what I'm going to talk about. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about to even forget about what we're going to talk about.
But again, you now are comfortable with moving into that unknown.
Yes.
And that kind of allowed you, that pop that you're talking about, that Adia is talking about,
Yeah.
that we all have those in a number of different facets throughout our life.
Yeah, and there's still a little bit of this butterfly type thing when I go into a talk because I don't know, but I don't let it stop me. Actually, I dive into it now.
I relabel it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, this is anxiety, this is this. Well, this is excitement. This
Yeah.
is generating this.
It's
know?
excitement. It's almost like the way like I said, I would talk to people about that. Like I always feel this feeling like, well, it's like a drag car. I'm like, what do you mean? They rev the engine up, hold the brake down before they pop the clutch, so the car can go. When it takes off, it's ready to go. But if you wait to the green light to start hitting the gas, you lost the race. So prior to getting out on stage, you feel this anxiety, like I want to get out there, I want to get out there, I want to get there. Hold it. Bam! Once you're out there, then you let the energy go. So it's called the inertia period, or what I call the G-force period. So when I look at it that way, I'm like, yeah, this is normal. It's how it's supposed to be. I'm revving up the engine, just like an airplane taking off. I can feel the G-force. Mm-hmm. But once I get up and I'm up to 30,000 feet, I feel nothing. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like, wow. But I need that feeling to get to here. So I bring that on. If I just go out and have that feeling, the talk is going to be very like, hi, how's everyone going?
But this is why public speakers, too, kind of amp themselves up.
Yeah.
You'll see them have a little trampoline in back or whatever. They just kind of get their energy going. Yet, what, like, you just described it perfectly with the G-force. You have this like sensation and feeling, and you need a way to kind of get it out.
Yeah, and then
so you need some movement. That's why bands or artists,
Yeah.
they have warm-ups, etc., before they go on stage, or routines.
Well, this happens everyday life. Like people going to work. I'm like, you have this anxious feeling. I'm like, because you're not at work yet. I'm like, in your mind, it's like work, and you're like, I'm driving. And that's where, when you actually understand you're not at work, you can slow down that anxiousness. Because again, you don't want to blow the engine at the starting line. Yeah. You can do that too, and that's what happens a lot of times.
That's a lot of us do.
Yeah, so when you learn to throttle better, you get better at it. All of a sudden, like, I'm in the car, I can't worry about work right now. It doesn't mean you turn around and go home. It just means you don't get anxious to the point where you can't handle it. Because there is a fine line of how much too much anxiety to excitement. Excitement and anxiety are the same field of energy, just a different filtration, different understanding of it.
You, when we were talking before we got on, you gave it an awesome example about like us being like, the steady point on a teetering, scale. Can you talk about that for a second?
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about that. Like,
I think that's a good example.
Yeah,
because we are the awareness to what's going on.
Yeah, the awareness.
Whatever way we go, we don't have to allow it to affect us.
Yeah, awareness. So we are peace. Peace is not something we have to strive for. All right? You could strive to do something out in the physical world. At the end of the day, what you do out there, whether it works or not, we get to a point where it has no bearing on us to keep us doing it. But the point that we don't have to strive for is the peace point, and that's the teeter on like a seesaw, right?
Yep.
So you got the teetering point. That's the stillness. That allows everything to teeter. Without this, there isn't this. But we want to live in this from this place.
Correct.
So we're living life from the state of peace. You have a nice balance point. It's not like boom or boom. It's not erratic.
But it takes the awareness that we're discussing right now to get to that point where no matter which way you teeter, you're holding and you are at that point of peace.
Yeah, so I can be at peace sitting in traffic on my way to work.
Exactly.
But
when you're aware of what these sensations, these feelings are, and how you have the ability to label them or experience them, then you're kind of guiding it. You're also it's not something that you're not aware of. It's not like, oh, why is this happening to me? It's, oh, this is this sensation, and so you work through that.
Yeah, and that's it. Like here in Perspective Shift, We're just showing you how that just you have the capacity to change your perspective
At any moment.
So you say, okay, I'm nervous, or it's like, no, I'm excited. So when you tell yourself from a psychological standpoint, I'm excited, it has a more preferential understanding to it. But the energy's still the same, but it's like, oh, like, I feel something coming on. I'm like, oh, it's working. Oh, this is working? Okay, good. Then there's another point where Adyashanti gets into, and it's getting to the point where you don't label at all. But it doesn't mean you do not respond or react in the world in which we're in. We didn't come here to just sit in a cave or sit and meditate. We came here to respond and react and do all these things and have experiences. But that's when you don't label, it's almost like full detachment. Almost like having the dog. You have more fun with your dog when it's off the leash than when it's on the leash. So perspective shift would almost be like having those leashes that can go like 50 yards, right? It's still a leash, but it seems like there's more play. So the dog is not controlling you. You're not controlling the dog. You're doing it from some safety reason. Where Adyashanti gets into this point of complete detachment where there is no leash on the dog and your interaction with the dog is natural. It's organic, and you don't. If the dog comes to you, great. If not, no big deal. But when the dog comes, you respond. When it doesn't, you respond to something else. You don't go searching for it. And this is, I believe all of us internally have this at our core. We already came here with this. The thing about children, you put something in front of a child, they picked it up and looked at it. But they didn't like, hey, mom, dad, like 6 months old, grab their phone and start, ordering stuff off Amazon. Yeah. And like what you said earlier about like picturing the way you think it should turn out, I'm like, well, if you want to do something new, how can you even picture something new? It's use the picture for the generation of the feeling. And in that feeling, something always new will come about. I could have this exhilarating feeling. It's not the same exhilarating feeling I had yesterday, but the outcome and what's going to come to me will be different. Even if I eat an apple every day, it's a different apple. Mm-hmm. It's never the same apple, But if I compare it, because we have memory, but the memory isn't really that good. Like, oh, that apple I ate was really good. And now I'm comparing it to that one apple, and I'm searching, the farmer's markets for that perfect apple. And you realize, like, you were in a really good state when you ate that apple. That could have been like an apple someone dropped on the floor. I don't know. It could have been. But so you create it, but now you're looking for the apple rather than the state in which you're in when the apple was the greatest apple.
And this is why when people talk about the vacations they go on and stuff like that, oh, I hated this place. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Or was it the state you were in when you were visiting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it plays a big role.
Yeah. And, again, what are we vacating from?
Yep.
All right. Can we not just? So it's funny because people don't people they're starting to not use that word anymore. They use the word travel.
Yep.
Like, hey, you got any travel plans this summer? Rather than, do you have any vacation plans? Like, yeah, because I find more and more people aren't needing to vacate from their life. They like their life, but they just want to go visit here. They want to try something different, So you're starting to see a shift in consciousness, and you're starting to see it in the outside world, the way we're labeling stuff. Yeah, people are traveling now. They're not vacationing. I need a vacation. No, I like to travel. One is for something, one's against something. I need a vacation means I hate my job. I need to vacate the world in which I'm in. I need to get out of here. Mm-hmm. Where travelers go towards something, where vacators are leaving something.
Yeah, they're running from something.
Yeah, they're running from something. And as we start to settle down and just mill around this concept in your head and contemplate it, you're like, wow, yeah, what am I running? What am I trying to achieve? There is nothing to achieve. But there's endless multitudes of experiences to be had, and that's what life is. And like, oh, this is interesting. I'm drawn to this, but I don't know anything about it. I'm like, well, yeah, you will when you get on it, but what do you know about anything?
Well, what you're talking about right now too is that yearning that Adya talked about in the beginning of that last video. We know that there's something more than just work, than just suffering than just this and just that. You know, it's you start to come into like,
Well, those are all.
remember who you are.
Yeah, those suffering and all that stuff becomes an illusion, and it is
That
illusion.
pops.
Yeah, and I want to, I try to clarify as much as you can, but the world we live in, like the physical world we live in, how we perceive it is the illusion. But this table isn't an illusion, but how I feel about table. Like, Mike's like, I wish we had a lighter colored wood. Just making this up. But I'm like, what's wrong with the brown? Because I purchased it. What's wrong with it? It's like, so that's the illusion, is how we feel about it. So I'm like, I think this is nice. So the illusion is everyone should think so too. And if people just, want to get in my good graces, they're like, oh, this is a great table.
This is a great table.
It's a great table. Karen picked it out, by the way. That's why it's a great table, Karen.
Nicely done.
But how we perceive it, and that becomes the illusion. But the table itself is a frequency output of that was placed here. So people are going to walk in the room and not see a table, but how they look at it, how they feel about it. Mm-hmm. That's their business. It's not mine.
That's it. I mean, yeah. The way we look at any type of, matter is exactly like that. It's more telling of our perception onto it than the actual it.
Yeah, so someone said, so when someone says I'm suffering, and then natural questions, why are you suffering? Because of this, this, and this. Well, this, and this exists, but you're suffering because your perception to it, not because of the prop. And that's a concept we're starting to wake up to. I know I woke up to, and I still get lost in it, but yet I'm the one defining the thing that's happening out there, and whether I choose to look at it blandly, jokingly, inspirationally, fear, that's up to me. That becomes the illusion. So what illusion do I want to attach to it? And the best way to attach something to it is get down to the bare bones where it just is. And there's no illusion there. It's just a table. How it's going to look in my thing and how I'm going to position it, there becomes the illusion. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I don't go into the basic understanding, start from that place of peace, that place of it just is, I get lost in the outside world. But people are trying to fix the outside world to get to just is.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, you can't do that.
Yes.
Rearranging that piece of wood on top of the teeter isn't what's creating the teeter. It's the teeter itself. And if you looked underneath the piece of wood on the teeter, like, oh, this is the foundation, is a state of peace. Now, when you place it, you know where the balance point is because you know where the teeter is. I'm like, okay. But the piece of wood is just a piece of wood. If you have a 5-foot piece of wood or a 10-foot piece of wood, the center is the center, and that's where the teeter has to go. It doesn't matter. The center will find itself. But if you don't know where the teeter is and how it works, you might create a ramp rather than a teeter.
And that's what a lot of us are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's about starting with the basis, that state of peace. And Adyashanti is amazing at that. Like, he's just very subtle. He'll talk about stuff that can't be even talked about. He'll get you there, and then you have to take. It's almost like like living in New York. It's like you take the subway. It doesn't get you directly to where you want to go, but it gets you a block or two. Yeah, you got a little walking to do.
Well, that's because what we're talking about, these concepts that we're describing, there's no destination.
No, there isn't. But they'll get you close enough to the experience to where you're like, okay.
It's this point of the infinite, the unlimited possibility, the no defining of something.
Yeah, because every time I have an experience, I could sit and talk about the experience for an hour, but I didn't get any closest to the essence of the experience.
That's it.
Other than the fact I like to talk.
But that's the truth, We're trying to constantly, here at Perspective Shift, describe the undescribable.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going round and round in circles. But for each person at home listening, it's going to get you on that subway and get you just close enough.
Yeah.
So when you do experience it, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you want it, like the subway system, no matter where you go in New York, will get you anywhere from 3 to 4 blocks from where you have to go. It's like, so it's a doable journey.
Yep.
So a lot of these things, someone like Adyashanti, you listen to him, he'll take you down the road if you listen to him long enough. Because just listening to him, to me, is a meditation.
Yep.
He's very peaceful, very calm. So that in itself is a meditation, listening to him. He's not like, you can do this, you can do that. He's just very soft-spoken. And I appreciate that. I gravitate towards that. Not everyone does, but I personally do. And it's interesting. Like Mike just turned me on to him a couple of weeks, like 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh, and I, right when he turned me on, turned me on to him. I was getting in my car and I just put it on YouTube, and I was don't worry, people, I wasn't watching. I was listening. I'm a safe driver. My insurance guy's like, "Oh, son of a bitch."
We got
we got you. My rates go up. Like, oh, shit. My rates go up. We got you on tape, buddy. You said it. Like you're watching YouTube while you're driving.
My rates doubled because of perspective shift. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah. So I was listening to him, and like I was like halfway down the block leaving my house. I'm like, just the cadence of his voice was like, wow,
immense
this
peace.
is nice. Yeah.
Kind of like a Muji.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever I listen to Muji, I mean, I can put him on in any capacity, and it's this overwhelming peace that you're describing.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice, and so you want to go in for the second clip?
Yeah, but let's throw it on.
I like to call it irrational happiness, because there's no reason for the happiness necessarily. You can't point to it other than the recognition. You can't point to anything that's happening and saying, this happened in my life and therefore I feel really good, Whereas when we're in our egos, happiness is always defined by something good that's happening. Some event, some meeting, something that's actually happening. That's sort of the feeling of happiness that makes sense. This happened, everything went my way, and I feel happy about it. Of course, it's temporary. It's just a matter of time until something doesn't go your way, and then on the ego level, you lose your happiness. On the level of soul or being or consciousness, you could use any of these words. On that level, you could be in the moment of recognitions, and things could very much go in a way that some people may say isn't going your way, and you'll be happy anyway. You may be challenged. Doesn't mean you'll never feel challenged, but there's that underlying sense of happiness. It's just part of that recognition. And when people recognize that recognition can either be a temporary recognition, it's always rather sudden, usually, a temporary recognition, or a permanent recognition. In other words, you can sort of recognize it. Oh, that's what I am. Oh, lovely. And the great relief of that, the great happiness of that, and then at another moment, it might seem to just kind of wither away, and disappear, which will leave you really, really wanting it, In fact, a lot of people's spiritual lives begin through some little brief moment of recognition. It's like the little aperture opens up, and all of a sudden there's this great sense of well-being and happiness and absolute okayness, and then maybe it closes down, and then you start on a spiritual search.
And then you start on a spiritual search.
Yeah, I like that. And it's true. Actually, that's what we were just talking about prior to this clip. It's finding that underlying happiness, which is the place of peace. And when you get the ego out of the way, it'll appear. Just like when you get the clouds out of the way, you realize the sun's always been there. The sun never goes away. It's just we're not in range for seeing it.
I love how he calls it irrational happiness.
Yeah.
but that's so funny because irrational, right? Why would you be happy if things aren't going your way? This is something that we are taught and conditioned throughout our childhood. And, Frank, I love your example.
And even reinforced to our adulthood, yeah.
Well, you gave the best example to me one time, and it was, you get off of school, growing up. You get home and you're sitting with your family and you're at the dinner table and your parents ask, how was your day? Oh, it was great. I'm happy. Why? That's a question that comes
Yeah.
next. Why? Oh, shit, now I got to come up with a reason why I'm happy. We're not allowed to just feel good.
And that's
you
the
know?
very moment we were taught to lie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this happens day after day after day after day. And so it's very much so conditioned into our beings that we must have a reason why we are happy.
Yeah.
And happiness is conditional.
Yeah.
And this is the worst way where we can possibly live our lives, because we will never find or achieve true happiness by living this way.
No, because in the act of telling the story, it will distract you. So therefore, you can feel the happiness, but it's momentarily. I remember on another clip I was listening to him talk about. He was talking about people that are in like athletes and like high level athletes, or any level athlete, doesn't matter. But when you're running a race and you cross a line that was drawn in the sand faster than somebody else, you have this momentary excitement and happiness about your achievement, but then it dwindles. But then you realize it's an arbitrary line in the sand and you beat somebody. It's when you look at the concept, how did that create happiness? What it did is you put out there something that if this happens, I'll be happy. And this is actually how OCD and other type of events happen in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, it was weird. Like it was almost like good luck, bad luck type stuff, or superstition, I should say. But I was walking down the street, and I'm like, okay, like today had to be a lucky day because I was taking a test. Any other day, I would give a shit. So I told myself, if I don't step on a crack, I'm going to pass the test.
Dude, I did this
Do you
shit
remember
all
any cracks
the time.
around the
Frank, I did this shit all the time growing up.
It's nutty.
If I make this basket in the trash, then it's going to...
Yeah, it was like yeah, so
stupid
now...
shit.
And now it's like the freaking little Frankie's got issues over there.
No, like I
Trying to
used to
avoid
do
cracks,
all that
yeah.
stuff, man.
And then if I
think we all do.
if I stepped on a crack, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to do well on the test. And then because I was clever, I'm like, well, I'm going to start from here and do it again.
Hold on.
Yeah, I still
I'm going to
didn't
do
do good on
over
the
on
test.
this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, where it all came crashing down is one day I made it to school without stepping on a crack, and I still failed the test.
What the hell?
So, like, I gave up on that idea.
Throw the whole concept
Yeah.
out the window?
But it is. We're creating something to do in order to create the result in which we want it to be, to ultimately get to a place of happiness and peace. Happiness, peace is a starting point. Before the gun is even fired for you to start running, you should be happy.
That's it.
Regardless of the output, at the outcome. Because if you're happy, you're gonna run the best race you've ever ran.
We have trained ourselves. We have trained this habitual body. We've trained the habitual body, the mind body, to believe that
The programmable body.
Yeah, the programmable body, corporeal self, that we have to have something outside of us in order for us to generate that feeling within. And we are living completely backwards. Completely backwards. It's I was telling you, Frank, I heard this this Earl Nightingale guy said this quote. It was like it's like pretending, it's like telling like the stove or the heater, after you provide heat, I then will add the wood. That's what we're doing here. Yeah. We're saying, okay, I need out here, outside of me, to look the way I picture it. Then I will allow myself to feel happiness. And this is why we're in this constant state of suffering, is we must generate that feeling from within, and then our outside experience begins to reflect that to us. And so until then, we live in an artificial state of happiness that is dependent upon if things are going our way or not. And that's why he calls this "quote unquote" irrational happiness. Yeah. That's true happiness, is irrational happiness. It's no matter what way. Yeah. But happy. In the world we live in the reality that we were conditioned to grow up in, you're crazy to think you're happy if you're making, minimum wage and living, at your parents' house. Oh, you can't be happy. Why not? Says who?
Yeah, one has nothing to do with the other. Because there's a lot of very wealthy people that aren't happy.
Absolutely. And so you start to look at these concepts and you see the holes in all of them, and you're like, oh, okay. Even the rich, aren't happy.
But that's, it's interesting. A lot of people have said this, and there's a misconception about this too. Like a lot of people, I know people that are highly successful, and they get to this point where there's a lot of agitation You know, depending on where they are at success, is an idea is like, I can't get any higher. Like, how much more money do I need to be happy? And they're at that place. And like, I just want to go back to the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, but the reason you were happy in the beginning because you knew less or misunderstand. Now is where we bring in the idea of what we call wisdom. Like, you don't have to give everything away to be happy again. I mean, it's absurd. It's to stop relying on the outside world. Back then, it was like you seemingly had something to look forward to, and you were looking forward to wasn't it. Stop looking forward to that and be present. We were more present in the beginning of our lives trying to start something because you had to be. Then all of a sudden now, like every day, it's like, okay, I achieved this. Where's the happiness? I won 5 races already. The first one was great. Second one was okay. You know, by the 5th time, like, okay, where's the sustainable happy? I'm like, the sustainable happiness is the underlining happiness that's in there. It doesn't come from the doing, because everything that we do is constantly, forever fleeting. The outside world's always fleeting.
And that's why, you know, to base your happiness on this fleeting outside world, you won't be happy.
Well, you can't grab it.
That's
nothing to grab
it.
onto it.
You know, there's nothing real to hold on to.
Because
you see the illusion for what it is.
Well, what it is you are peace. You are happiness. You are separate from it.
That's it.
But you're separate from the outside world. But that's the fleeting experience. But when you like, you're searching out, you're searching for something separate for the thing that you are is ridiculous. It's like looking for yourself when you are yourself. There's nothing to look for. Ram Dass said that.
We're
It's
doing
like
that all the time.
It's like taking the bus. It would be like taking the bus to Detroit when you're in Detroit. It's pointless.
Yeah.
You're already there. You're here.
What are you searching for?
Yeah, what are you searching for? And when you alleviate yourself from searching, you naturally become peaceful and happy. And then also, hey, let me go experience this. Let me go here. Let me go here. But you learn to detach from the outside world. You're in the world, but not of it.
This is something Adya really hammers home is, and I think a big reason I related to him was he talked about, you know, this struggle in the beginning with like the Zen Buddhism and what he was working on with his teacher. He kept falling into this trap of seeking, you know, I must ascend. I must be this spiritual guru. I must be this. And we just took our seeking and now applied consciousness to it. And so now we're just seeking consciousness. You know what I mean? We didn't change what we're doing. We're just doing it with a spiritual tone. Yeah. And that's where, honestly, a lot of, you know, these new age woo-woo people are at. It's like they're replacing it, and just because they're talking about spirituality.
Now it's not like
Now it's not a big deal.
Yeah, 7 ways to become a billionaire. Now it's like 7 ways to come to ascension.
Yeah.
The only time I ever wanted to ascend is one time I was like, I got in trouble with Karen, and she was lecturing to me. And I just like wishing to myself my body could just dissolve right from it. Just dissipate. Like right now, ascension's needed. It's like,
I'm sure
I'm
Karen's
done.
gonna love that.
I'm like clicking my heels like Dorothy. Just get me home. Get me home.
I'm sure a lot of people at home have wished they could ascend in certain situations.
And I'm sure Karen would love to see me ascend at that moment.
Right. But those are the moments that we move into, and then we watch them pop, and we laugh about them after because of the feelings we had during them, and you know, and the idea we created in our head of, oh, I don't like this, or oh, this is an awkward situation, or oh, this is that. No, move into that and watch that bubble of story pop.
Yeah, and everyone has experience with that. If you just go back to or reminisce or even like ponder a time you did that, that's how it is. But every time you're elevating to another level, there's always going to be a G-force. Every time a plane takes off, you're going to feel it. You know, even if it changes altitude, you're going to feel it. If it goes higher or lower, you're going to feel it. But when you understand that's what it is, you don't panic. Like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, we're elevating to a higher level. That's it. And right now, we're in the G-force process. And I feel everyone is because, like I said, like you take the situation in Russia with Putin, and the world knows it's crazy. So here is Putin trying to change the outside world for one reason, because he wants to be at peace. And the rest of the world is like, if you live and let live, dude, you'll be at peace. Most people can see it, but he can't. He's so stuck in that. But it goes to show you that there's very few. I haven't spoke to one person that actually agrees with Putin. All right? I'm not saying they're not out there. But years ago, there were people like, hey, could see, see why somebody would do that.
Absolutely.
But it's not that what they're doing, it's how they're doing it, trying to change the outside world to get to peace. We want every human being to experience peace. But you're not going to get it by moving that pile of rocks from here to there, to there, to there, to there. You're not. That's just an activity. All right? But doesn't get you to peace. But when you're at peace moving rocks, it's kind of fun. Like, what are you doing? Just moving some rocks. Why? Hell if I know.
Well, I also think we're an advanced, civilization now, or more advanced than we were,
Yeah, because advanced is a very, very tricky word.
It is, because I would consider the Egyptians far more advanced than our current,
Well, based on the story we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, that's it.
We're the one creating a narrative about the Egyptians.
That's it.
They probably smoked bongs and no, I was kidding.
they had their
different they had their Jeff
journeys,
Spicolis in their days.
Hell yeah, they did. Hell yeah,
they had their Einsteins and Jeff Spicolis. So
like we all do.
Actually, yeah, I
there
are moments when I'm close to that and closer to this. It's like and Karen's like, you're an interesting person. Like, what do you mean by that? She's like, yeah, I'll leave that one alone.
I'll leave that one alone.
Yeah, we're not going to touch that.
It's just so funny because there's so many different directions that life begins to kind of pull us, and we get to choose if we allow it or if we kind of change the course.
Yeah, and just let go of it and detach. It's like letting the dog off the leash and trusting to see what happens.
Yeah.
And, again, like when you're living your life, like if you have a dog, like I'm using this analogy, but actually in actuality, I would take my dog into a dog park and let off the leash and see how it responds to me. All right. And then one day you'll be able to do it. It doesn't matter where you are. Because the truth is a dog can't leave the planet. Yeah. So there's always a backyard. It's just a bigger backyard. Right. So as we do that, we learn to let go. There's still this understanding of containment. So I was telling Mike earlier, like, whenever I shift perspective, I'm stepping out of one box and creating a new box. But the experience can only be had within the box. But there is this delicate, subtle experience that you have in the interim where there is no box, but you can't really express it. You can only feel it, and then you come back, and then I get in the box, I try to express it. I'm like, oh, you're not gonna believe what happened, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden everyone's intrigued by it. But how? I'm like, it's like the subway. It gets you about 3 blocks away. You gotta go, and then the rest you're on your own.
It's that excitement you're generating while you discuss it that people understand there's something more to that.
Yeah. So there's this experience we have outside the box, but then to then talk about it or to contemplate it, we get into a box to have a framework to how to explain it.
I like how you said that, because that's kind of how we talk about like dimensions and stuff. People talk about this third dimension, this reality that we live in, time, space, linear time. Then this fourth dimension, fifth dimension. What these dimensions are not different planes, physical, like you're seeing something different. It's more how you're experiencing the same plane.
Yeah, it's a different frequency, which can turn out to be a physicality. But there's a moment of the shifting in between it where there's nothing. It's like complete void. It's like in between every word I speak and every syllable I sound, there's silence. That silence, that's the experience I'm really looking for, or I'm not looking for, I experience. And then on like a perspective shift or whatever, I talk about it.
Yeah.
And it comes in many ways. It doesn't just happen through meditation. It happens and when I'm present.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, okay. And then I talk about it for the next 20 minutes.
And it's happening now in this moment. And that's the thing. This fleeting thing, that's the details. This ever-present, infinite moment is now and forever will be now.
Yeah. All right, let's check out this one last clip of Adyashanti and tell you what you like. All right, here you go.
That's what awakening is. So in that which is dormant in you. So within everybody, there lies dormant spirit. The Buddhists would call it Buddha nature. The Advaitists would call it consciousness. But there lies within everybody that. And spirituality is about bringing it from a state of dormancy, asleepness, non-awareness of it, to wake it up. Because this is the odd thing about spiritual awakening, is it's not your idea of yourself that wakes up. It's the odd thing about it. You know, there you are, going around trying to make something happen, you know, whatever it is, or trying to find God, or you're trying to be enlightened, or you're trying to wake up, and your idea of you is struggling, sometimes very ardently, sometimes it's sort of takes a break. But the odd thing about spiritual awakening is the thing that wakes up is not the thing that's searching. The thing that's searching is just our idea about ourselves. That's all that's doing the searching. Our idea of ourselves. Because our idea of ourselves, within it is a constant state of insufficiency. In some people it's very overt. And some people walk around in their lives feeling very, very obviously insufficient. You know? And then other people it's sort of very hidden. You know, their insufficiency is well disguised. They may not even know they have it. Do you know what I mean? I remember, this is something I observed many, many, many years ago when I was in athletics, and I realized that people who excel greatly, you know, the kind of people that you watch on TV or win gold medals in the Olympics or do all that kind of stuff, they seem to have this very, very sufficient sense of self, you know, especially when they're standing on the podium and everybody's cheering for them and they look so happy and, you know, their whole life has come together in that moment and everything seems so sufficient. Well, I can tell you from being one of them and from being around them earlier in my life, that actually, even though it looks one way, that actually a lot of what propels that kind of activity is a sense of insufficiency on some level. Right? So to an athlete, if they get across the line, they feel very good about themselves. Their sense of insufficiency has been temporarily abated. Right? It's been satisfied. Oh, I'm worthwhile. I beat somebody else across an arbitrary line in the sand. Right? Good for me. I feel good about myself. I'm worthy. It's a funny thing that can make egos feel worthy, isn't it? Right? You can cross a little line in the street faster than somebody else, and your ego can go, I feel good about myself. Right? Other egos are doing something else to be sufficient. Right? We look through sufficiency through finding someone who will love us and will be sufficient, feel sufficient, succeeding in your job. Maybe the desire that having a family will make you feel sufficient. And all these things can make one feel sufficient in a relative way.
Yeah, it was good.
I love that clip.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, so I was touching on earlier about like me not stepping on the cracks. If I could do so, that was if made myself feel efficient or worthy, and which is a weird game that we do that. But when we go from that underlying place of peace, you could still run the race and cross that line. But whether someone beats you to it or not, you have the same exhilaration, same feeling. You're not waiting for that moment because it's short-lived. It's just putting the cart in front of the horse in finishing the line. But when we learn to put the horse in front of the cart, it's a smoother ride. It's how it's designed from the physics of the world.
I think it's cool how he talks about this constant state of insufficiency. That's how I felt my entire life. I still fall into it. Don't get me wrong.
Of course. But now it's like when I recognize so creating the new box becomes sufficient. But it's that interim, that space between the boxes is really where everything is. That's what I'm looking for. So more of my attention or awareness goes to that place rather than the outside world. But I still get caught in the outside world as well. I'm not like blind to it, but now it's like, oh, great job. I'm like, oh, thanks. You know, I have less, like, I don't get excited because someone thanked me for my job as much, you know. But then
Well,
I'm like,
it's not
but
you,
I'm like,
the ego, you
yeah,
doing it.
well,
you
it's
know?
ego. Then I'm like, well, it's been a while since someone said I did a good job.
Yeah.
You know,
You're like, shit.
so I'm like, I don't care if someone says did a good job. I'm like, it's a good job is about anything is actually, it's an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, right? Like I remember watching this documentary on, it was in Yosemite. I forgot the name of it's not a mountain. They call it a mountain. It's a wall. It's literally a wall. It's like a 90-degree wall. And this woman was climbing it. She's one of the people on the documentary. And she's sitting there. As she's climbing, she's telling the story. It's like, I'm amazing at climbing. Boom, boom, boom. And next thing you know, a lizard just boom, boom, looked at her and shoom, and she goes, I suck. Because the lizard was boom, boom, right up by. Like it stopped, looked at her, and took off. Mm-hmm. It's relative to where we are. So the relatability to where I was once, I'm great based on the outside world. But to a lizard climbing the wall, I'm like, I suck. You know, It's like a surfer's like, oh, I'm great until you see a dolphin surfing. Like, they do all these things. But you realize, but there's an essence where the lizard and the climber are the same. And that's the point we're going for. What made it poignant was the fact that she laughed. She didn't get upset when she saw the lizard. That was that moment we're looking for. That's the noticing. It's like, I am sufficient right now. I don't need to be better. I don't need to tell myself I'm great. You know, and all of a sudden for her, again, I'm speaking for her, the lizard made her feel like, oh, yeah. Liz is like, yeah, don't get ahead of yourself.
Exactly.
Because
a little insufficient reminder.
You're already sufficient. You don't need to be better at what you're doing. And I'll remind you of that, but you're already sufficient. Because then all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm great. I'm so great. I'm going to leap for that. And that could be the last thing you go to grab, you know, and the experience. Again.
And the only reason you make that split-second decision is due to a feeling of insufficiency. When in all along, you have always and will be sufficient.
But when you're sufficient,
that's where we make mistakes.
Yeah, when you're sufficient, you don't make mistakes.
No.
You actually just move into it.
Your most natural state.
Ah, so
yeah,
right?
Truly,
pretty much.
You know,
yeah,
it's cool because when you realize, you know, that you have been living in such a constant insufficient state for so long, it's like the whole illusion shows itself. You're like, wait, I'm always thinking I need to be somewhere more.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking there's something more I need to do. This is never going to stop. And I started to realize this, you know, through like my business life and stuff. Okay, so I achieved that goal. Like, I want to make this amount of money. I want to have this type of business. I want to work for myself. And wait, why don't I feel whole yet? I made that step. I bought that house. You know, I got the white picket fence. I had a child. I got married. Why do I still feel insufficient?
Yeah.
And this is what helped me to see, oh my gosh, this is how I've been looking at life.
Yeah.
I've been perceiving myself as insufficient and just chasing that next task. There is no task to chase.
No, there isn't. But,
you know? And, well, he says, like, there's like these levels of insufficiency, you know, and some people hide it better than others. And that's very much so true. You know, you'll see like the wealthy, you know, just because somebody is more comfortable. And this is where society goes wrong. We confuse comfort and pleasures for happiness. Just because somebody is more comfortable does not mean they are happy. And that's why, like, he brought it up with the, you know, his example of the different like Olympians and stars like that. You know, those are some of the most insufficient people, you know, he's met. The same thing goes for actors, musicians, our teachers, these high level, you know, people who pride themselves on their level of intellect, you know, they're constantly chasing, you know, that PhD, that this, you know, so they can say, you know, I'm sufficient. You know, look, I got the credentials to back it up. Those are some of the most insufficient feeling people.
Yeah, and I think all human beings feel that. They actually feel that. So
Absolutely.
That's where compassion comes in.
That's the ego.
Yeah.
You know, the word ego is it comes from the Latin word I, and when you see that ego means I, you know, what we have identified is a separation from, you know, that which is outside of us, and so it's this very separate, alone feeling. Like I've got to fend for myself, I've got to feed myself, I've got to take care of myself. That's where this insufficiency comes from, is this idea that we are not connected with everything around us.
That you're not complete.
Yeah. And in all honesty, we are so complete.
Yeah.
And as you begin to allow this wholeness, allow this self-sufficient, you know, these ideas to pervade, you know, the mind, the thinking mind, the subconscious, you begin to get stronger. You begin to get healthier. You begin
Well,
to
you
get,
actually
become
realize
more
you already
wise.
were.
That's it.
And actually,
It all starts to fall into place.
so to understand this, there's a huge paradox here. When you actually go from that base place, people will notice the accolades. They'll notice it, but you're like, and you'll graciously, yeah, thank you. I noticed it, but that's not why you did it. But when people actually are doing it for the accolades, they become the annoying people in society. Look what I did. You know, there's other people have done that. Look what I did. They walk around with the trophies.
I got this much money.
Yeah, they start talking about their accolades. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's like when you talk to someone, I like that guy. It's like, oh, you know what he achieved? It's like, no, he didn't tell me, you know. It's like, yeah, because that's not why he does it. That simple conversation they have with you over a cup of coffee is everything, because they're at peace. They're already sufficient. Don't need to add to it. But the power of paradox you cannot help to have all these experiences move towards you in what we call the law of attraction. So if you're always trying to achieve something, and through the achievement of prior to it, there's a little bit of anxiety to move you along, you're always going to be in that state of anxiety, because that's called the law of attraction.
Well, and explain that too. Like, if you're always trying to achieve something,
you're always trying to achieve something.
Yes,
that's the way it is.
You are never whole. Meaning you're only going to experience and feel and attract, like Frank was talking about, lack.
Yeah.
If I need to achieve to feel whole, then I'm only attracting lack. Yeah. And this goes back to what Frank and I were talking about when we say you have to feel the success. You have to feel the happiness before the outside world's going to begin to conform to you. You know?
Yeah, and
what signal are you sending out? Are you sending out happiness? Are you sending out success? Or are you sending out, I need this, I must do this to achieve that? Because if you're sending out, oh, as soon as this next task is complete, then I'll find happiness, you're only going to experience and see reflected unhappiness or unworthiness.
Yeah, and at the same time, you have to drop the insistence of what success looks like.
Oh, yeah, that's made up.
So, like, I could be in a state, my success will look this way, and Mike's will look that way. And society wants to say which one's better. Like, you know, they want to draw the line in the sand. I'm like, go for it. I don't care. I don't play that game anymore. I'm sufficient most days. And the days I get caught up when I'm not, it draws me back to a deeper understanding of I already am. It's like a car. When you purchase a car, you can then drive it out a lot. You don't need to add to it. Okay, now that you get the car, well, now you got to train the car to drive you. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, no, the car is already sufficient the day you buy it. Where do you want to go with it is the question, not is the car ready to drive?
I do.
The car is already sufficient. It's done.
I do think people are waking up to the way that how society, like our media and our movies and things, portray stuff to be completely and totally false. And
it's changing, though. You see, the movies out there are changing.
That's
like
it.
The movie Matrix.
Everything.
Yeah.
I'm watching people see, like, you know, like this idea of, you know, and you'll hear people talk about this, but like you can't, find happiness or wholeness, you know, like without a family. You need a mother, you need a father, you need this like family role, this nuclear family that we show and we talk about. And that's just ridiculous. You don't need any of that, you know? You don't need this role and that role, et cetera, and all this. there's ways to achieve. There's infinite number of ways to achieve and experience different things, and like to live in this society where it says, okay, you have to have a family raise you this way in order for you to have a good outcome, otherwise it won't happen. That is just complete, utter nonsense. We have different family roles playing things. Yes, it is. But we have different family roles playing out all over the place now, with like parents living together with children.
Yeah, but that even to itself is an illusion.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's just something else.
You know, but there's just these different ideas that we're seeing fall completely away. You know, like when I was growing up, it had to be like this in order for you to turn out normal. And it's like, what is normal?
Yeah, when there was only one or two things, there seemed to be a right or wrong. But then there's 20 things. It's like, which one's right or wrong? I'm like, it's showing you that there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
There's just an understanding of like how you perceive stuff, and that's what Adyashanti he does very delicately. Obviously, I suggest go in and check out more of his stuff.
Definitely, he's got a lot of content.
Yeah, he's got a lot of content out there. Yeah, and check him out, see what you like, because just listen to him, even if you don't closely, just put him on the room, almost like you do with a song, and just sit there. If you're reading a book or just staring outside at the tree in the yard, all of a sudden the essence of what he's saying will come through you. Is an essence, not necessarily the words, but an essence we're trying to pick up, and that's really what it is. It's like there's an essence, and you could go deeper into the essence. But pick up the essence first. And he offers up essence great. He really does.
Well said.
Yeah. So check him out.
Thanks for joining us this week, guys. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe at the link below. If you have any questions or you want to see maybe a specific spiritual teacher, physicist, you name it, send us a comment. We'd be happy to, do an episode on them.
Or comedian.
Or comedian. But we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Peace out.
Thanks all.
All right.